All right, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. It's a beautiful Sunday here in the city of Houston, the state of Texas. Today, we're going to try our best to reproduce something that I tried to do a couple of days ago that did not go over too well because of the problems I was having with the tablet that I purchased. I wanted to purchase a very inexpensive drawing tablet that I believe that most of us could benefit from. So the tablets that I looked at, we can go back and look at a few of those on, Amazon if you guys like. But to kind of round everything off, the tablet did not work out. The Amazon product that I got had some issues. It looked like it had been used and returned, so it didn't work out. So what I've done is I have ordered a new tablet from Amazon. So we're going to see how well this tablet works out. I tried to stay within the $50 to $100 range, as I mentioned before, because a lot of you guys I know are on a budget, and you want to be able to, for the most part, be able to afford whatever it is that you're looking at, as well as see the benefits of it. So for new photographers, I cannot emphasize enough that yes, working with some form of graphics tablet, even if it's the most inexpensive ones, will still be better than using a mouse, a traditional mouse. I'm currently using a MacBook Air for this demonstration. It is an M1 version, and it, for the most part, performs very well. I've mentioned in a couple of videos in the past that I'm working from beta software because I'm in the beta program. So I have beta software on my Mac as well as I do on my PC. I'm sorry, PC, on my iPad. So let me switch over to another screen so you guys can kind of see what my setup looks like. We can do better than that. So this is what my traditional setup looks like. So usually what you see here is an iPad, MacBook. If I'm live, then I may be using the Rodecaster Pro. I have another MacBook Pro over here, as well as an iMac over to the far side of the desk here. Move this around just a little bit. And then I have a large monitor that I use for monitoring my live streams, chat, things like that. So, for the most part, that's exactly how I set it up. Now, if you look at this MacBook, this is a very small MacBook. This is a MacBook Air M1. It's a 13-inch MacBook, so it's very, very small in comparison to other devices I've used. So in comparison to, say, this iPad as an example, the screen size is very, very close to being the same. Now, when I'm shooting tethered, this is ideal because I can shoot tethered directly into this MacBook. And then, from that, the images go from Capture One straight over to the iPad so that the client can then see these images in the iPad, real time. So whatever I'm capturing from the camera goes straight to the MacBook. From the MacBook, it goes straight to the iPad. It's a win, okay? And, with current things, current state of the world, that's a very good setup because, in many cases, if you're working in corporate environments or you're working in environments where you're going to have a lot of, turnaround for things like corporate headshots or even some of my, fashion clients, who are doing, fashion portfolios and things like that for their new lines, it makes it a lot easier when I can place the designer or whomever the person may be on the other side of the studio and they can see real time what's coming in. So it's a win. Now, generally on the average, like what I was telling you guys before, and I'll switch back over to the other screen so you can see. So usually what I'm doing here is when I'm editing an image in Photoshop. So let me just find an image here and open real quick. Anything will do. What do I have? Let's just grab this one over. Okay, let's just open this one in Photoshop. All right, so let's say this is the normal, image coming in from Capture One or something like that. And I'm going to be doing some post editing on the image. So usually what I would do is I would split this image in two, or at least have two views of it. And then at that point, I'm able to, edit on the iPad. So if I have a split view of this image, then I can just drag one of them over. Well, first of all, I need to be connected to the iPad, so that would probably help things out a little bit. And of course, it's probably not going to respond because I wanted to. All right, let's get the iPad all set up. And I'm currently using what is known as Sidecar. So what Sidecar allows me to do is to, actually, let me go in here real quick and set up my screens again because I've changed things around. So here we go. So let's say this is our iPad. This is the MacBook. And this is my external monitor. So I want to adjust that one. Okay, that's good. And I'll scale this one 1080. Just so I have everything, proportional. So now I can move these around. So here's our iPad. Actually, I want this. I don't know why it's not working for me today. Okay, let's try this again. There's something weird about this monitor. This MacBook does not like this monitor at all. So let's move that over the iPad where we want it. Okay, so now we have our iPad on the far right. We have my MacBook in the center, and then we have the larger monitor that I'm using for my streaming information over here to my left. So we can just close that now. So then I should technically be able to just drag this over to the iPad, and you guys can kind of see what I'm doing here, right? So I'm going to resize this image real quick. So let's say here's our image, and this is what I would be working with. So let me switch over to this camera. So if I was editing this image, for the most part, what I would be doing here is still controlling Photoshop from my MacBook. But another option would be for me to just drag Photoshop itself all the way over to the iPad, and then I could still work here on the iPad, away from the Mac, even though it's still connected to it. So that's another option. So if you have an iPad, this is a possible option for you for your workflow. Now, the problem that I've encountered, and again, like I said before, I've talked to a number of people, I've talked to a number of photographers that are working this way, and they seem to be having the exact same problem, is that they don't have the pen pressure control that they're looking for from, a tablet. Because the Apple Pencil, if you're using a native Apple oriented application, whether it's Photoshop or Affinity Photo or whatever it is that you're using, you have some pen pressure control within those apps. But when we're using Sidecar, because it's basically just using the iPad as an extended monitor, you lose all of those pen pressure controls. So that becomes an issue. So when you're doing frequency separation or using dodging and burning or something like that, that's going to be an issue because you don't have that same control with your image when it comes to blending those colors and, you know, painting in your shadows and stuff like that. Now, another option would be to save the image, then transfer it over to the iPad, which is multiple steps. And then you're going to reopen this image, for instance, in the mobile version of Photoshop. And then you should have a little bit more pen pressure control, but nowhere near what you're going to get if you're going to be using a tablet or something like that. So, you know, with all that said, let's move on. Okay, so here's the tablet. Now, here is my old bamboo tablet that I used. I can't even remember when I got this thing, probably about 15 years ago. And I mean, it still works, and it will probably work on an older system, but, you know, because of the M1 Max and the way that their drivers now work with different software, it's not working the same. So, you know, that's something that you're going to have to consider whenever you're buying new software, hardware, especially hardware, is that it's a possibility that some of the older hardware may not work as well with the new systems. And that's all up to the developers if they're going to create new drivers and new software for these older devices. And let's see here. Okay, so let's get right to it. I think I've explained enough, so we're going to get right into what we're doing here, right? So I'm going to take the iPad and I'm going to take that out of here, find some place to put it. All right, so we got our iPad off to the side, and this is what we're going to be working with now. So this is the Wacom Intuos small Bluetooth tablet. So I haven't opened this, and trust me guys, I was so tempted. But let's get to it. Now, hopefully I won't have any of the problems that I had with the previous tablet. Wacom, like a number of others, are very good at, you know, staying up to date on their drivers, depending on, you know, which software, which operating system that you're running. So, all right. So first thing we see in the box is the tablet itself. Big difference from the previous one. This one is actually wrapped. You know, the previous one, if you watched any of that live before I removed the video, the covering for the tablet wasn't there. So, you know, it was obvious that the tablet had been used. So if we look at this tablet in comparison to my previous one, yeah, this is much smaller. But for my kind of run and gun type of work, I like something small, you know, so you could see here how this would fit in the workflow for, you know, working with a tablet if I was editing on such a small device. Now, obviously, if I'm using my larger computer or something like that, or one of the other computers, you know, I still think this is going to work the same because, you know, if you think about it realistically, you take a mouse, and when you're using a mouse, you're not making long, you know, 10-inch movements to move from one part of the screen to the other. You know, on the most part, you know, you're moving like this, you're clicking, whatever, and it works out perfectly. So this should work. Okay, so let's see what else comes in the box. So we get the cable, and this is a micro USB to a USB-A. You know, it's old school, but it'll still work. But remember, this is Bluetooth, so once this is charged, this cable is not as much of a big deal. You know, for the most part, you would just be using this cable if you went with this model, is to charge it. And then once it's charged, from what I've read, you know, you'll get up to 18 hours or better of use. So, you know, that's a win. So also in the box comes some instructions. You know, we never read these. It's a guy thing. But, you know, here they are if you need them. And the last thing in the box is the pen itself. So let's open the pen. Like I said, guys, I haven't, you know, touched any of this stuff. I wanted to wait for this live. And, you know, we're like, you know, a friend of mine, we were just talking about it a couple days ago. You know, we're like kids, you know, with a new toy. But now, as I hold this pencil, pencil, pen, whatever you want to call it. It feels a lot better than the previous one that I looked at from the UG version, because the UG one was more like this pencil, which is very, very plasticky. And you can hear the rattling of the parts. You can literally shake it and hear the components. This one